Winter Roses, Summer by fairytalelovr. Chapter 37. A Crowd of People. They were having their last family breakfast when Adam, giving in to his sister's insistence, and also knowing there would be no avoiding this argument for much longer, revealed his intended destination. Ned nearly choked on the bite of bread he'd been eating, and turned to his good brother with a dark glare. "I don't think that's a good idea," he spoke through his teeth. "And what is the impediment?" Adam asked in provocation. He knew why Ned was against it. Because someone with a full disclosure of the truth would be very close and in a trusting position of Jon and Daenerys. Unlike Benjen, Ned knew Adam wouldn't take orders all too quietly. Ella threw him an annoyed look. "Brother, are you sure that's what you want?" But Ned and Adam were locked in an intense glare war, and he didn't reply. "I don't understand what the problem is," Sansa said. "Nor I," Arya replied. "Isn't Adam good with his sword? He can join Jon's guard." The knight smiled, holding back a laugh. Ned's face turned even sourer as he turned to his wife. "What do you think of this?" he asked. Ella sighed, knowing she wouldn't be looking forward to the conversation they'd have on the matter once they were alone. "I think that it is my brother's decision where he wants to go, and if Jon and Daenerys have no problem with it—" "I'm the one who invited him," Jon said, "and I don't see the problem." "Your father wouldn't see a problem either, once he knew of the invitation," Adam needled. Ned bristled, standing up and throwing his napkin on his seat. "Excuse me, I have council business to attend to," and he stomped out of the room. Ella threw her brother a levelling glare. The voyage back north had been uneventful, and this morning Jon was breathing a huge sigh of relief as he watched his castle draw itself against the clear blue sky as they sailed even closer. Daenerys joined him on the empty corner he had claimed for himself on the deck of the Lady Daenerys. "Home, sweet home," she said, smiling as he enveloped her in his arms. "Finally!" Jon exclaimed. "I couldn't get you and Lyanna away from that snake's nest fast enough." She smiled bigger, relishing his embrace and the chill of the northern wind rather than the suffocating southern clammy heat. "Well, I agree. I'm much happier to be back home. Our little family with our friends," she smirked. "All four of us." Jon frowned. "Four? What do you—" He froze, pushing her back a bit to look at her gleeful purple eyes. Are you saying what I think you're saying?" Daenerys only smiled. "I'm saying that since I'm taking care of the whole village, you can take care of the nursery. Besides, you did such a good job the first time around." Jon's smile grew slowly as he processed the news. Then it opened so wide his cheeks hurt later on, and he picked her up and twirled her in the air, laughing loudly. Adam, who had been showing Lyanna the fish swimming by the boat on the quarterdeck, turned around with the commotion, then rolled his eyes. "Young fools in love, little pup. That's what they are. Young fools in love. It must run in the family." Lyanna laughed, clapping and turning her attention back to the waves, completely oblivious to her parents' joy. Ella reclined on the chaise, glad that she was far enough along in her pregnancy that her terrible morning sickness was finally abating. At 4 moons, her bump was growing too obvious, and the first thing the new Maester Ned had requested of the Citadel, and only accepted after Maester Lewin's approval, did was forbid corsets. Ned came back into the room and she frowned. He was supposed to be on small council already, but he had a huge smile and a raven scroll in his hands. "Message from the Midnight Fortress. From Benjen, actually," he said, passing it over. "My dear brother, it is my pleasure to announce that my wife, the Lady Isla, carries my child. We are thrilled with the news, of course, and the very auspicious time it seems to be. Lady Starling fares well, and Lady Lyanna grows up like a true lady of the northern blood, like her namesake. I hope Lady Stark is also well. All our love. Lord Benjen of House Stark, Lord of Crystallia." "Oh my!" Ella exclaimed. "So many babies at once!" Ned smiled. "They'll all have someone to play with, then." "Well, Lyanna gets to reign supreme over them," she said, teasing, and he only rolls his eyes. Daenerys was sitting at her desk in her solar, playing with a model of the village, trying to plot the best way to make the water from the aqueduct get there. She fidgeted on her seat. Her child was particularly active today, even if Jon was cross that he couldn't feel it yet. Though at 5 moons along, it wouldn't take much longer. "Mama!" Lyanna called. "Up, Mama! Up!" Dany smiled. Lyanna had been asking to be lifted up to look at the shelf for days now, ever since she had heard that her name day present was there. And even though she couldn't grasp the idea of what a name day was, she was capable of understanding that it was today, and that she would get the present today. She wasn't, however, very keen on accepting that she had to wait. "We'll wait for Papa, darling," she said. "He's coming." Lyanna frowned, upset. "Mama," she whined. "Wait, Leah." Daenerys gave her a censoring look. "Don't you want to come here and help Mama?" Lyanna huffed, but had already learned that while a smile convinced her father, it didn't work on her mother. She used the sofa to stand up, reaching for her doll that had been sitting up there, and stayed up, leaning on the sofa for support as she played. A few moments later Jon came into the room. "How are my 2 girls this morning?" he asked, having woken up at dawn to get Arya and Sansa as they disembarked. "Papa!" Lyanna squealed. She turned around, stumbling a bit on her legs, but used the sofa to support to stand. Jon bit his lip, and held back the instinct to rush over and take her in his arms before she fell. Instead, he crouched down a few steps away. "Come on, Leah. Come give Papa a kiss." Lyanna furrowed her brows in concentration and looked at her father, who was smiling at her, and tentatively let go of her hold on the sofa, lifting one little foot and stepping forward. Dany stood from her chair, biting her lower lip to keep the same overprotective instinct to prevent any hurts. Lyanna took one stumbling step, then another, then a third, then enough that she fell into Jon's arms, giggling. "Now that's my girl!" he said, kissing her and making her squeal in delight. Dany was halfway to crying, cheering as well, and Lyanna smiled, very proud of herself. From that day on, Lyanna obviously only walked everywhere. Jon was half proud, half despaired once she was sure enough on her feet to start running. "What is the meaning of this?" Isla asked, walking into the room the maid had led her to, and finding her husband inside. She froze, looking around. "This is a name day gift," Benjen said. "What do you think?" Even if her emotions weren't running crazy because of her pregnancy, though now at 6 moons along the upheaval was less frequent, she was sure she would have cried anyway. "This is... Benjen! You're just..." He brought over a little wolf he had carved, and Isla sniffled even more as she took the toy. "I figured," he said, "that I couldn't let my own nephew outdo me in the nursery building business." She chuckled. "It's beautiful, love." "Come here," he called, leading her to where the crib was. Did you make this yourself?" she asked, under the carpenter's watchful eyes, "since I couldn't risk having our child sleeping in an unsafe place." She smiled, softly passing her fingers over the motif of wolves carved into the soft wood. "I love it. It's wonderful." "Come," he called softly, leading to where the chest of drawers was. There was a little tableau on top of it, depicting a dark night sky with the dark brown trees and dark green leaves of the wolf's wood. In a corner of the picture there was a big white moon, all carved in the same soft dark wood. He placed the wooden wolf in the scene. "Sam was telling me something interesting." "He always has something interesting to say," she commented, still admiring the little scene. Benjen smiled. "So, apparently in some Yi or other Essosi dialect, I'm not exactly sure right now, Isla means moonlight," he said, and she looked up at him, surprised. "I had no idea." "Sam read it in a book." Benjen chuckled. "So it seems that this old wolf was always destined to howl at the moon." She smiled, her tears falling in abandon now, throwing her arms around him and hugging him as tight as their child between them would allow. Isla kissed her husband, thanking the gods once again for her fortune. The sound of loud laughter and children playing was permeating the late morning air. It was the day of the northern equinox, and they were throwing a huge party at the castle courtyard to boost the farmers' morale as they returned to the fields to sow the seeds. John was with Sam and Benjen in a cluster of men, drinking ale and talking. RileyRoxx, Oris and Ghost were keeping guard around Lyanna, as she had fun with other little girls, playing in the fountain under Isla's watch, and getting everything all wet. Daenerys was sitting in a chair John had ordered brought out, their child too heavy for her to spend the whole day on her feet, though there was still over a moon to go. Adam was sitting next to her, tense, his hand on the hilt of his sword. John hadn't even stopped to think about the notion that commoners needed their lord's permission to carry weapons, waving it off with a simple, "Well, he's not really a commoner, is he?" "You are too tense, Adam," Daenerys said. "Relax. This is a party." "Exactly why I can't relax, my lady. People get drunk and stupid at parties. Not to mention that the mess and the crowd are perfect opportunities to hide someone with ill intentions." Dany knew there would be no convincing the man otherwise. Not that his argument didn't have merit. So she returned her attention back to the party. A while later she got restless again. "Adam, I'd like to go for a walk, if you wouldn't mind." He smiled kindly. "I'd never mind, my lady." He held out his right hand, his left automatically going for the long dagger kept on his other hip, helping her up from the chair. Then he offered his left arm, freeing his sword hand, and they walked away into the throng of people. Lady turned her head and stood up from where she was properly sitting, falling into step on Dany's other side. They walked halfway around the courtyard, stopping by the stands along the way to taste all manner of delicacies, Westerosi or foreign. Adam was quite anxious about it, when some stall holders noticed and tasted the things themselves before offering it out. Lady suddenly stiffened, turning around in the direction of the fountain. Ghost was already standing to attention, and that prompted RileyRoxx to reach for Lyanna. She was unhappy, unwilling to leave the fun at the water, but Isla soothed her as she came up annoyed. John had also noticed something amiss when Nymeria stiffened at his side, her hackle up, then bounded to join Ghost and Lady at the fountain. Adam freed his arm from Daenerys's, one hand on each hilt, and the other guards stepped next to them. "Take Lady back inside! I'll make sure the little—" he screamed out when the fake guard's dagger buried itself on his arm, away from the protection of the boiled leather armor. The assassin pulled another dagger out, going straight for the now unprotected Daenerys, who was frozen in shock, wrapping both hands protectively around her middle. He smiled, a sick, twisted smile, as he lowered his arm, burrowing his dagger on the woman's left shoulder. He pulled the dagger out, raising it up for another attack, but Adam forced his wounded right arm to unsheath his sword and threw it onto his left hand, stopping the dagger as it descended towards Dany again. The other man cursed, taking his sword out as well, but even wounded and left-handed, Adam was not easy to get through. He was struggling, it was clear, blood gushing down his right arm even as he parried and charged with his left, but he still landed some nice blows. The courtyard descended into chaos, people running everywhere. John tried to reach for them, but Daenerys and Adam were across from him, and he had to fight through the throng of people trying to run away. He reached the fountain in the middle as Lady growled at an attacker Oris was taking down, Ghost and Nymeria having just downed 3 of them. "Take Lady Lyanna upstairs and lock up the castle!" he yelled. RileyRoxx was already biting out orders, and Isla was cradling a scared Lyanna against her, as Oris started to pull her away. "Papa! Papa!" Lyanna cried, reaching out for him. "It's going to be fine, little love. Papa just needs to go get Mama, alright? Aunt Isla will take you to your room. Lady Nymeria with them! Ghost, to me!" But Ghost was already running in the direction of Daenerys and Adam. Lady stepped even closer to Isla, and Nymeria growled, ever defiant, and followed after the white direwolf. Giving Lyanna one last look, checking she was halfway to the entrance door, as Benjen joined them, John cursed under his breath as he pushed people aside to get to his wife. Everything had become a confused and messy blur to Daenerys as she lay on her back on the pavement. Her left arm was hanging useless, her shoulder exploding in burning pain, as she cradled her expanded womb with her right hand, praying, crying in joy she felt her child still kicking. She heard the noises, the people screaming, Adam's grunts as he fought the assassin, but made little sense of it. All she could focus on was the feeling of her baby kicking against her hand, feeling of life as hers seemed to fade away. Adam yelled as the cat's paw pulled the dagger he had buried out of his arm. While the blade had been blocking most of the blood flow, it was now running out with gusto, weakening him severely. He lifted his sword, blocking another attack, but his knee buckled under the strain, and he was sure it was over. And this opponent was nowhere near as honourable as Ned Stark had been. The assassin would kill him without hesitation, and proceed to kill Daenerys and the child she carried. He wouldn't be content with peacefully reaching his sister. And then, white blurred through his already blurred vision, and the assassin was gone. Adam turned to where Daenerys was, and dragged himself to her side, clinging to his sword even as he heard Ghost tear the assassin's throat out. "Daenerys! Dany! Can you hear me?" She somehow found the strength to grab his hand with her wounded arm. "The baby is still kicking," she sighed out in relief. Adam cursed under his breath, thanking whatever gods were listening. "Hold on, princess. Just hold on." "The baby first, Adam. Please. Ask Jon. Tell him to save the baby first. Then me. If they could only save one of us. Save the baby. This child matters more than I do, Arthur. And I'm not talking about the fucking crown." His memory threw at him. "Promise me, Adam." Daenerys pleaded. "Promise me, Arthur." It echoed in his head. "Adam, please. As your lady, I command you. I'm commanding you as your princess. As the wife of your prince. The prince you swore fealty to." "I promise, princess," he vowed, just as he had vowed 18 years ago to a different princess, about a different royal child. And said royal child appeared through the crowd, sheathing his sword when he saw Ghost had taken care of the threat, and Nymeria was keeping an eye out for others. Jon knelt down next to his wife, holding her up in his arms. Dany, please! Where's the Maester?" "Jon," she whispered, with weaning strength. "Jon, save the baby first." "I'm saving both of you." Dany held his hand, pulling it to where the baby was kicking and kicking, her womb already cramping up in labour. "The baby first. Promise me." "Dany, I can't choose between you." "You're not. I am. It's my life, Jon. And if that is the price I have to pay for our child's, it's not a high price." "It is for me." "I'm a mother, Jon. My life is nothing compared to our child's. Promise me. If this is my last wish, promise me it will come true." Jon nodded, though he was crying in despair already. One of the stall holders brought his counter to serve as a makeshift stretcher. A few men came to carry it inside. Another hauled Adam to his feet, and what was left of the crowd parted to allow them to cross the way to the castle, Ghost and Nymeria growling at any stragglers. Ghost was particularly fearsome. Outside of his usual calm posture, his white fur stained dark red. Starling guards met him halfway, making sure the courtyard was secure, and carried Daenerys all the way up to the family wing, where Maester Walken was already preparing the birthing room. Sam sat Adam in his room, working with the Maester's 2 apprentices to stop the bleeding and stitch up the wound, trying to help the man. Nymeria came and sat in front of the door, guarding it with 2 guards, just as Lady was in Lyanna's nursery room with Rhaelys, Oros, and 3 others. Ghost stood by the door of the room they had brought Daenerys to with 5 guards. But all the security in the world was of little use now. Benjen helped Isla to the armchair in their room, seeing as she was beginning to lose it. "Love, I need you to take a deep breath," he pleaded. "Come on, please, for me. Breathe in, then breathe out." She's going to..." Isla mumbled. "She is not," Benjen said. "Come on, love. Breathe." "She's going to die. The baby." "We can't think like that," he insisted. "Maester Walken is there. Everything will be fine." "You don't know that. I have to be there. I need to help."
You're helping no one if you're like this. Come on. Breathe. But Isla was overwhelmed by her own past. Her baby. Her Raya, dying from inside her after Dirk's attack. Never even seeing her first name day. Princess Lyanna falling down the stairs, dying to give life to her son. Daenerys, bleeding and crying as she was carried past them. Images blurred and flickered past her eyes. A confusing whirl of images in which no scenario had everyone alive. Isla! Come on, love! I need you to breathe! She barely heard Benjen speaking to her, her mind confused and overwhelming with panic and pain. Love, listen to me! Take a deep breath! Come on! But Isla couldn't. All she could process was pain and sorrow and death. Until Benjen took her hand and placed it on top of her bump, where their child kicked against it. Life, each kick said. Life, not death. She looked up at her husband, forcing herself to copy his breathing. In and out, slowly. And bit by bit, her mind eased. Her panic subsided. She broke down, sobbing, but no longer in panic. Moments later, there was a knock on the door. What is it? Benjen demanded, not letting go of her. A guard walked in, his fist clenched around his sword and his face scrunched up with anxiety. Word from the harbour, my lord. A visitor to see Lord Starling. They want to know if they should allow him upriver or not. They already got word to close the harbour. Who is it? Benjen asked. Tyrion Lannister. Adam groaned in pain as Sam finished the suture. You're sure you don't want milk of the puppy? He asked again. No, Adam snapped out. It'll knock me out and make me useless. You can't fight with your arm like this, Sam said, horrified. I think you mean I shouldn't. And I agree with you, though I will if I have to. But if I take milk off the puppy, I'm a useless piece of meat sleeping on a bed. Adam, you took a dagger in your right arm. It cut through the skin and muscle, and it even reached the bone. I just think... Sam started, but was interrupted by a knock on the door. Adam tensed but relaxed when he saw that Nymeria reacted by stepping aside. He frowned when Benjen walked in. What is it? He asked. Are you very wounded? I'm still up for a fight if I need to be. Benjen nodded. We got a visitor, and I think it's a very strange coincidence that it happened to be today. Who is it, and where is he? The knight inquired. He's on his way upriver, escorted by 2 guards, and RileyRoxx is putting together another party to pick him up at the pier. Benjen replied. Good, I'll have a while to wash off the blood. And put on a sling, Sam insisted, not cowering at the other's glare. Look, I know this is very likely not the first knife wound you take in your line of work. But exactly because you should know how wounds are healed, I have to insist that I do not allow your sword arm to be forever damaged. Look, Tarly. No, sir. You look. You're the best sword in this entire castle. Which means you're Jon and Dany's best hope against a band of assassins. So you are healing properly. Fine. Adam exhaled. For a cowardly fellow, Samwell Tarly was quite brave when it came to protecting his loved ones. I know you're right. I'll put my sword from my left hand until it's healed. Sam rolled his eyes, but counted it as a victory anyway. What else is happening, Stark? What did the maester say? And the little lady? Lyanna is fine, Benjen said, still scared and impressed, especially because she hasn't seen Jon and Dany herself. Lady was the one who was clean, so she's the one in the nursery. But Ghost is still in full protective mode. Therefore we can't clean him. And I guess that would calm Leah more. But her nurse is with her, and now that Isla's calmed down, I asked her to go in there as well. Fuck, Adam cursed. She'll be in a state. After what happened to her and... Aye, she was quite anxious. Benjen cut in, noticing Sam's interest in the conversation. And Daenerys? Maester is with them. No news yet. There was another knock on the door, and Araya came in. Lady Starling is in labour, she said in a shaking voice. Maester Wilkins said that the baby is early, but everything looks to be fine. Eerie and a midwife from the village are helping. What about Lady Starling herself? Adam asked. The Maester is attending to her shoulder, as the midwife, tends to the baby. But the lady needs to push. So she's losing too much blood. Where is Lord Starling? Benjen asked. With the lady. So she won't leave her side for anything other than the Lady Lyanna desperately needing him. He said the castle is under Lord Stark's authority for now. But if they find anyone that hasn't been put down yet, he will sentence them himself. Benjen nodded. Tell them the Lady Lyanna is fine. And Lady Stark are with her now. And that we'll manage the castle for now. Doreah nodded and turned to leave. Girl! Adam called. Find someone to clean Nymeria. The direwolf threw him a dirty glare. You should go to the nursery, but without frightening the little lady. The wolf growled slightly, but accepted, following Doreah out of the room. That gives more protection to Lyanna and takes them out of Lannister's sight, Benjen said. 2 birds, 1 stone. Adam said, rolling his eyes when Sam brought over a salve and a sling. Wait, did you just say Lannister? Tyrion Lannister, the imp. Benjen explained. He is our visitor. Harbour says he came here with 1 sellsword. No Lannister banners or red coats. I don't like it. This stinks, Adam said, looking at the salve Sam was spreading on his arm. And I mean Lannister being here as well. Why is he here, and why today? We'll know once he gets here. You just focus on getting that arm settled to get better, Benjen said. I'll check with RileyRoxx to see if they've managed to get anyone else. And I'll send for you when Lannister docks at the pier. He smiled as the knight only grumbled, leaving the room and letting Sam handle a cranky patient. If Jon had thought Daenerys' screams had been bad the day Lyanna was born, he had either forgotten them, or this was just... It had no comparison. Rosie, the midwife, was speaking smoothly, trying to deliver the child safely, but Daenerys was in agony. Come on now, my lady. I can see the little one's head. Come, 1 big push now. You can do it, love, Jon said in her ear as he sat behind her, supporting her as best he could, his voice thick with tears. You hear me? 1 big push, and our baby's head is out. Daenerys was beyond the point of being able to make conversation, but the words registered somewhat in her brain. She braced herself, holding onto Jon's hand and pushing with all her strength at the next contraction. Feeling Maester Walkin follow the movement, putting pressure on her bleeding shoulder. Very good, my lady. Very good. 1 more and it's all over. 1 more, my lady. Dany breathed in and out, resting against Jon as she waited for the next contraction. When it hit, she put every last ounce of strength into it, screaming out to the blur of pain. And then Rosie took the child. Eerie cut the cord, and the baby's cries filled the room. I need to lay her down now, my lord, Maester Walkin said. Go see your child. I've got Lady Starling. Jon didn't want to go. Dany was pale, paler than usual, as if all her blood had seeped away from the wound in her shoulder, and by expelling the baby. My lord, I need you to take the child. I need to tend to the lady, Rosie said, seeing on Maester Walkin's face that neither of them wanted Jon in there for the next part. But I need to be with her. My lord, you have my word I will call you back in, Maester Walkin said in a calm and reassuring voice. But right now I need you to take the child and go outside. Go, Jon, Dany croaked in a wavering voice. Let me give our baby a hello kiss and go and introduce Lyanna. Jon trembled as he carefully laid her down on her back, arranging her soft silver curls to be away from her left shoulder. He used the basin and cloth Eerie had brought over to wash his hands, then went to Rosie. The midwife smiled softly, holding out the child. Here's your son, my lord. Jon felt more tears filling his eyes as he reached out to cradle the baby boy in his arms. I have a son, he whispered, almost unbelieving after the mess the day had become. He came back to the bed, letting Dany kiss their son's forehead, and then the midwife was pulling on his shoulder. You do, my lord. A handsome baby boy, 10 fingers and 10 toes. And he'd love to meet his sister, I'm sure. Rosie ushered the stunned father outside. When the door closed behind him, Jon couldn't help but feel as if he had just lost his wife. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. Oh boy, that was dramatic. Assassination attempt which sends Dany into labour. But at least the little boy's here.
And a little cliffhanger, but don't worry, next chapter's coming soon. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified when I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video.